The glass dome of the council chamber stretched high above Ambassador Chen Wei's head, showing the stars beyond in their eternal dance. She had rehearsed her speech 100 times during the 3-week journey to Concordia. Her hands held the datapad with humanity's colony expansion proposal, and her heart carried the hopes of 5 billion humans scattered across 23 worlds beyond Earth. Chen stood at the presentation platform, a small circular stage that floated in the center of the massive chamber. Around her, arranged in a perfect circle, sat the representatives of the 12 elder species. The Celestials glowed with soft blue light from their elevated seats. The Vryn coiled their serpentine bodies on heated stone platforms. The Corthan delegation sat rigid in their crystalline chairs, their 4 eyes watching her without blinking. Honored council members, Chen began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. Humanity requests permission to establish 15 new colonies in the outer reach sectors. We have identified worlds with no existing claims, far from established trade routes. These worlds will provide homes for our growing population and... Enough. The word came from High Arbiter Zahn, a celestial whose age was measured in centuries. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Chen paused, confused. The presentations were supposed to last 30 minutes. She had barely spoken for 2. The Council has reviewed humanity's expansion patterns, Zahn continued. His blue glow intensified. A sign Chen had learned meant strong emotion. In 47 years, your species has established 23 colonies. In that same period, the Vryn established 2. The Corthan established none. With respect, High Arbiter, humans have shorter lifespans than most Council species, Chen said, trying to keep her voice steady. We must expand to ensure our survival. Our population growth is precisely the problem, interrupted Council Member Thessa, a Vryn whose scales shimmered green and gold. Your breeding is unchecked. Your expansion is aggressive. You consume resources at rates that alarm all of us. Chen felt heat rising in her cheeks. We follow all Council regulations for colonial development. Every world we settle is surveyed. Every ecosystem protected. We have broken no laws. Not yet, said a Corthan representative, its translator rendering the clicking sounds into cold, precise words. But projection models show that in 200 years, human space will overlap with 7 established civilizations. In 500 years, 12. 500 years. Chen's composure cracked. You're restricting us based on what might happen in 5 centuries? High Arbiter Zahn raised one long-fingered hand. The gesture silenced the murmurs that had begun around the chamber. The Council has made its decision. We invoke the containment protocols under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. The words hit Chen like a physical blow. Containment protocols. She had read about them in the historical archives. They had been used only 3 times in the Council's 2,000-year history. Once to stop a plague, once to quarantine a collapsing civilization, once to prevent a species from spreading a dangerous technology. No, Chen whispered, then louder. You can't. We haven't done anything wrong. The protocols are preventative, Zahn said. His voice held no emotion now, just the cold recitation of law. Humanity is hereby restricted to the Sol system, effective immediately. All existing human colonies beyond Sol will be transferred to Council administrative oversight within 6 standard months. The chamber erupted. Chen's translator struggled to keep up with the dozen voices speaking at once. Through the chaos, she caught fragments. Dangerous precedent. Necessary measure. Too aggressive. Growing too fast. You're taking our colonies. Chen's voice cut through the noise. 4 billion people live on those worlds. You're going to just take them? They will remain under human governance, Thessa said, though her tone suggested this was a minor detail. But Council administrators will oversee resources, trade, and expansion. This is for the good of galactic stability. This is theft. Chen slammed her hand on the platform railing. You're stealing our worlds because you're afraid of us. Because we're younger, because we're different. The vote has been called, Zahn interrupted. All in favor of invoking Containment Protocol 7 against humanity. Indicate now. Chen watched in horror as, one by one, lights appeared above each delegation's seat. Blue for the Celestials, green for the Vryn, red for the Corthan. Every single species voted yes. Even the Mirren, who had been humanity's trading partners for 30 years. Even the Gresh, who had helped Earth rebuild after the Mumbai disaster. 12 lights. 12 species, unanimous. No, Chen said again. The word felt hollow in the vast chamber. We have rights. The Charter guarantees. The Charter guarantees nothing to species that threaten galactic peace, Zahn said. He gestured to a pair of guards. Ambassador Chen Wei, your credentials are hereby revoked. You have 48 hours to remove all human personnel from Council space. Any humans remaining after that deadline will be detained. The guards approached, but Chen held her ground. You're making a mistake. Humanity won't accept this. Humanity will have no choice, Thessa said. Her scales had darkened to almost black, a Vryn expression of satisfaction. Your fleet is small. Your military is scattered across your colonies. You have no allies who will risk Council censure to defend you. You will comply or you will be made to comply. Chen looked around the chamber one last time. These beings who sat in judgment had lived for centuries. They had built civilizations when humans were still learning to farm. They had crossed the stars when Earth was still divided into squabbling nations, and they had decided together that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to grow. History will remember this, Chen said quietly. And it won't be kind to you. She turned and walked toward the exit. The guards followed at a respectful distance, but she knew what they were. Escorts had become jailers. The chamber that had welcomed her 3 hours ago was now a prison she was being expelled from. The walk to the human embassy section took 20 minutes. Chen used every second to record messages, send encrypted data bursts, and contact every human ship in Council space. Her hands shook as she worked, but her mind was clear. 48 hours to evacuate 200 personnel from 8 stations and 4 planets. Captain Rodriguez met her at the embassy entrance. His dark eyes were hard with anger. Ambassador, I've been monitoring the Council feeds. Tell me this is some kind of joke. It's real, Chen said. She moved past him into the embassy's command center. 3 dozen staff members looked up from their stations, fear and confusion on their faces. Everyone, listen up. We have 48 hours to evacuate all human personnel from Council space. Priority 1 is getting everyone to safety. Priority 2 is securing all classified information. Priority 3 is documenting everything the Council is doing. And Priority 4? Rodriguez asked. Chen looked at him steadily. Priority 4 is making sure Earth knows exactly what happened here today. Every word, every vote, every species that chose to cage us. She opened a secure channel to Earth. The lag time was 17 seconds, but she couldn't wait for real-time conversation. This message had to go out now. This is Ambassador Chen Wei. Urgent priority transmission to the Prime Minister and Solar Parliament, she began. At 1300 hours today, the Galactic Council invoked containment protocols against humanity. All 23 colonies beyond Sol are to be placed under Council administration. Humanity is forbidden from any further expansion. The vote was unanimous. Repeat, unanimous. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. They would define how Earth responded. They might define the future of the species. Every species we considered our friends voted to contain us. Every species we traded with, negotiated with, trusted. They fear us because we're young. They fear us because we grow fast. They fear us because we're different. But most of all, I believe they fear us because we won't bow. Chen took a breath. I am evacuating all personnel as ordered. But I want to make one thing clear. The Council has made a grave mistake. They think we're children to be disciplined. They think we'll accept this because we have no choice. They've forgotten something important about humanity. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes blazing. Children grow up. And when they do, they remember who tried to keep them in a cage. Chen out. She ended the transmission and immediately began coordinating the evacuation. Ships were dispatched. Personnel were recalled from their posts. Diplomatic pouches were sealed and prepared for transport. The embassy became a hive of controlled chaos. Rodriguez worked beside her, organizing transport schedules and security details. After 2 hours, during a brief pause, he asked the question everyone was thinking. What do you think Earth will do? Chen pulled up a star map showing the Sol system and its surrounding space. 23 human colonies glowed like small fires in the dark. Each one represented millions of people. Families, dreams, futures. I think Earth will negotiate first, she said slowly. We're not stupid. The Council has more ships, more resources, more allies. Starting a war would be suicide. But, Rodriguez heard the unspoken word. But humanity didn't claw its way up from the caves. Survive 2 world wars and reach the stars just to be told we can't go any further, Chen said. We've faced extinction before. We've faced enemies who said we were too primitive, too violent, too unworthy. We're still here. They're not. She turned to look at him fully. The council thinks they know us. They've studied our history, our psychology, our culture. They think they understand human nature. But they don't understand the most important thing. What's that? We don't know how to quit, Chen said. We literally don't have the biological wiring for it. You back a human into a corner and they don't surrender. They get angry. They get creative. They get dangerous. Rodriguez nodded slowly. So you think there will be war? I think, Chen said carefully, that the council just poked the single most aggressive, adaptable, and stubborn species in the galaxy and told them they can't have what they've worked for. What happens next is on them. The 48 hours passed in a blur. Every human was evacuated without incident. The council seemed content to let them go, apparently believing the problem was solved. Chen stood on the bridge of the transport ship Defiant as it pulled away from Concordia Station. Through the view screen, she could see the massive structure receding into the distance. It looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. She thought about the billions of humans on the colonies, waiting to hear their fate. She thought about Earth trying to decide how to respond. She thought about Admiral Marcus Thorne and the Solar Defense Fleet, holding position at Sol's edge. Most of all, she thought about the look of absolute certainty on High Arbiter Zahn's face when he had declared humanity contained. The arrogance of it, the assumption that younger meant weaker, that smaller meant powerless. Ambassador? The ship's captain approached her. We're clear of council space. Setting course for Earth. ETA 3 weeks. Thank you, Captain, Chen said. She continued staring at the view screen, watching Concordia disappear. In 3 weeks, she would reach Earth. In 3 weeks, she would deliver her report. In 3 weeks, humanity would have to decide what kind of species it wanted to be. The kind that accepted cages, or the kind that burned them down. Chen knew what choice she hoped they'd make. The council had called humans aggressive, had called them dangerous, had called them a threat to galactic peace. Maybe it was time to prove them right. Admiral Marcus Thorne stood on the bridge of the USSS Indomitable, staring at the message that had just arrived from Earth. 3 words glowed on the screen in front of him. 3 words that changed everything. Reckoning is green. Around him, the bridge crew continued their duties unaware of what those words meant. They saw only their admiral reading a routine communication. They didn't know about Project Reckoning. They didn't know that for 30 years humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario. Thorne had been 25 when he joined the planning committee. A young captain then, fresh from the border wars against the Kalesh pirates. He had argued passionately that humanity needed a backup plan. The council might talk about peace and cooperation, but Thorne had studied history. Powerful empires always found reasons to control smaller ones. The other admirals had called him paranoid. Earth's government had called it a waste of resources. But 3 leaders had listened. 3 people who understood that hope was not a strategy. They had authorized Project Reckoning under a classification so secret that only 17 people in all of human space knew it existed. Now it was real. Communications. Get me a secure channel to all fleet captains, Thorne said. His voice was calm, betraying none of the fire building in his chest. Command level encryption. No one else on this line. Yes, sir. Channel open. Thorne waited until all 12 faces appeared on his screen. 12 captains, 12 ships, against the council's thousands. The odds would have made a sane person surrender before the first shot was fired. Thorne had never claimed to be sane. Captains, you're about to receive encrypted data packets. These packets contain operational plans that have been classified for 3 decades. You will not discuss them with anyone outside your command crew until I give the authorization. Is that understood? A chorus of affirmatives came back. Thorne transmitted the data and watched their faces as they read. Captain Okafor's eyes widened. Captain Zhang's jaw tightened. Captain Novak smiled grimly. This is insane, Okafor said finally. Sir, with respect, this plan will start a war. The war already started, Thorne replied. The council fired the first shot when they voted to cage us. We're just deciding whether to shoot back. While Thorne briefed his captains 12,000 light-years away, Governor Sarah Okonkwo stood on the balcony of her office on New Britannia. The planet stretched out below her in shades of green and blue. 2 million people called this world home. They had built cities, farms, schools. They had created a civilization, and the council wanted to take it away. Okonkwo's assistant, a young man named David, brought her the latest transmission from Earth. The official message was diplomatic. Remain calm. Cooperate with council observers. We are negotiating a peaceful solution. The unofficial message, buried in the metadata using a code only colonial governors knew, was very different. Prepare for conflict. Hide assets. Trust no one. David, call an emergency session of the Colonial Council, Okonkwo said. Everyone who holds a position of authority. I don't care if they're sleeping, eating, or in the middle of surgery. Get them to the assembly hall in 2 hours. Yes, Governor. David hesitated. Are we going to fight? Okonkwo looked at him. David was 23, born on New Britannia. He had never seen Earth except in pictures. This was his home, his only home. If we have to, she said quietly. If we have to. 2 hours later, Okonkwo stood before the Colonial Council. 200 faces looked back at her. Farmers, engineers, teachers, doctors, ordinary people who had traveled across the galaxy to build new lives. By now, you've all heard the news from Earth, she began. The Galactic Council has invoked containment protocols. In 6 months, Council administrators will arrive to take control of this colony. We'll be allowed to stay, but we'll have no say in how our world is governed. Angry murmurs filled the hall. Okonkwo let them continue for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. I'm not going to lie to you. Earth is trying to negotiate. They're trying to find a peaceful solution. But I served in the Marines for 12 years before I became governor. I know what negotiating from weakness looks like. And I know that sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to punch them in the face. More murmurs, but these were different. Determined. Angry. So here's what I'm proposing, Okonkwo continued. We prepare. We fortify. We make it clear that if the council wants this world, they're going to have to take it by force. We won't fire first, but if they fire on us, we'll defend ourselves. A man stood up in the back. Okonkwo recognized him as Marcus Chen, head of the mining union. Governor, their ships are bigger than ours. Their weapons are more advanced. How exactly are we supposed to fight the entire Galactic Council? We can't, Okonkwo admitted. Not in open battle. But we don't have to win. We just have to make them bleed. Make it costly. Make them question whether controlling us is worth the price. She pulled up a holographic display of the planet. We have advantages. We know this terrain. We know where every cave system runs. Every mountain pass leads. We have 2 years of food stored in underground facilities. We have manufacturing plants that can produce weapons and ammunition. Most importantly, we have something the council doesn't have. What's that? Someone called out. Something to fight for, Okonkwo said. They're fighting for control. We're fighting for home. The vote was held that night. 193 in favor of resistance. 7 against. Okonkwo set the preparations in motion immediately. Military-grade weapons were moved from storage to distribution centers. Underground bunkers were stocked with supplies. Volunteer militias began training. 3 weeks later, the first council ships arrived. They came in a show of force. 3 frigates and a cruiser. Their hulls painted with council insignia. They held position in orbit and transmitted a message to the planet below. This is Council Enforcer Captain Relth of the Vrin Diplomatic Corps. Under the authority of Containment Protocol 7, we are here to establish council administration of this colony. Prepare to receive our representatives. Okonkwo stood in her office listening to the transmission. Her command staff surrounded her. Colonel James Wright, head of Colonial Defense Forces. Dr. Amara Ose, Chief Medical Officer. Counselor Robert McKenzie, elected representative of the Northern Settlements. Others. They're landing? Wright asked. Looks like it, Okonkwo said. She pulled up a tactical display. 3 shuttles. Approximately 60 personnel. They're heading for Landing Zone Alpha. Do we let them land? Okonkwo thought about it. About the message it would send. About the line they were about to cross, yes, she said finally. But we meet them armed. Full dress uniforms. Show them we're not backing down. An hour later, Okonkwo stood at the landing zone with 200 colonial troops behind her. The council shuttles descended through the atmosphere, sleek and powerful. They landed in perfect formation and the ramps lowered. Captain Relth emerged first. He was Vrin, scales gleaming gold in the sunlight. Behind him came a mixed group of council enforcers. Celestials, Korthan, even a few Mirren. Governor Okonkwo, Relth said. His translator gave his words a smooth, diplomatic tone. I trust you received our transmission. We are here to begin the transition process. If you and your staff will accompany us to the administrative center, we can begin discussions. No, Okonkwo said. Relth tilted his head, a Vryn expression of confusion. I'm sorry? I said no, Okonkwo repeated. This is a human colony, established under human law built by human hands. The council has no authority here. The council voted. I don't care what the council voted, Okonkwo interrupted. You want this world, you'll have to take it by force. But understand this. We will resist. We will fight. And you will pay in blood for every meter of ground you claim. The tension was immediate. Council enforcers reached for their weapons. Colonial troops raised their rifles. For a long moment, it seemed the war would start right there. Then Relth held up a hand. Governor, you're making a mistake. Your world cannot stand against the might of the council. You have perhaps a few thousand soldiers. We have millions. Surrender now, and this can be peaceful. Get off my planet, Okonkwo said quietly. Relth stared at her. Then he nodded slowly and turned back to his shuttle. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, we will enforce council authority with whatever force is necessary. The shuttles lifted off, and Okonkwo let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Wright stepped up beside her. That was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, he said. Maybe both, Okonkwo admitted. Get everyone ready. They'll be back. 24 hours later, the council ships opened fire. They started with orbital bombardment of military targets. The Colonial Defense Headquarters went up in flames. 3 military supply depots were destroyed. The main spaceport took a direct hit, but Okonkwo had prepared for this. The real military headquarters was underground. The real supply depots were scattered across dozens of locations. The real spaceport was hidden in a canyon 20 kilometers away. When the council troops landed, they found not a defeated population, but an organized resistance. The Battle of New Britannia lasted 3 days. Colonial forces used hit-and-run tactics, striking from the forests and mountains. They destroyed 2 council frigates with hidden surface-to-air missiles. They ambushed landing parties and disappeared into tunnel systems. But in the end, numbers won. The council had too many soldiers, too many ships, too much firepower. On the 3rd day, Colonel Wright contacted Okonkwo from his position in the northern mountains. Governor, we can't hold. They're pushing us back on all fronts. I'm requesting permission to evacuate civilian population centers. Okonkwo sat in the underground bunker, listening to reports of casualties. 300 colonial soldiers dead, 600 wounded, unknown civilian casualties, and the council kept coming. Granted, she said. Get as many people out as you can. That night, New Britannia fell. Council troops entered the capital city. Okonkwo waited in her office wearing her old Marine uniform. When the soldiers burst through the door, she was sitting at her desk, hands visible, weapons holstered. Governor Sarah Okonkwo, the lead soldier said, you are under arrest for insurrection against council authority. I prefer to think of it as defending my home, Okonkwo replied. She stood slowly. How many of your people died taking this city? The soldier didn't answer, but his expression told her everything. Hundreds, maybe more. Remember that number, Okonkwo said as they led her away. Because this is just one colony. We have 22 more. And they're all watching. They all know what you did here. And they're all asking themselves the same question. What question? How much is control worth? Okonkwo smiled grimly. How many of your soldiers are you willing to lose to cage humanity? While New Britannia burned, Maya Reeves sat in a coffee shop on Earth reviewing intercepted council transmissions. Reeves was human intelligence's best analyst. She spoke 7 languages, held 3 doctorates, and had an almost supernatural ability to find patterns in seemingly random data. And she had found something very interesting. The containment vote had happened 4 months ago. New Britannia had fallen 2 weeks ago. In that time, Reeves had been analyzing every piece of council communication she could access. Trade records, shipping manifests, diplomatic cables, financial transactions. One pattern kept appearing. Void crystal. Void crystal was the fuel that powered faster than light travel. Every ship in the galaxy needed it. It was found in only a few dozen places, always in small quantities. A single mine might produce enough to fuel 100 ships a year. But human space sat on something different. Reeves pulled up the geological surveys of the 23 colonies. Every single one showed traces of void crystal. Not traces, deposits, massive deposits. The largest in known space. They knew, Reeves whispered. She pulled up older council documents, reports from 30 years ago when humanity first applied for membership. Geological surveys, scientific studies, all showing the void crystal deposits. The council had known before humanity did. They had welcomed humans into galactic society not out of friendship, but because they wanted access to those deposits. And when humanity started expanding, started building more colonies, started moving toward those deposits, the council panicked. The containment wasn't about human aggression. It was about greed. Reeves encrypted her findings and transmitted them through secure channels. To Earth's government. To Admiral Thorne. To every human colony. But she also did something else. She leaked it to non-council species. To independent traders. To news organizations. To anyone who would listen. Within 72 hours, the information was everywhere. The secret forums where independent captains traded gossip. The news feeds of neutral worlds. Even the council's own internal networks. The reaction was immediate. On Earth, the Prime Minister addressed the Solar Parliament. Elena Volkov was 60 years old, a career diplomat who had spent her life avoiding war. But as she stood at the podium, her voice was steel. For 4 months, we have negotiated in good faith, she said. We have attempted to find a peaceful resolution to the Council's containment order. We have offered compromises, concessions, and cooperation. And throughout it all, the Council has lied to us. She displayed the void crystal data for everyone to see. They didn't contain us because we're aggressive. They contained us because we're sitting on the largest fuel reserves in the galaxy. They wanted control. They wanted to exploit our colonies while keeping us weak. They wanted to steal from us. Volkov paused, letting the anger in the room build. New Britannia fell 2 weeks ago. Governor Okonkwo is in a council prison. Hundreds of our people died defending their home. And for what? So the council could control fuel deposits they have no right to claim. She looked directly at the cameras, knowing her words were being broadcast across human space. I have tried to avoid war. I have tried to find peace. But there comes a time when peace without freedom is just another word for slavery. The council wanted us contained. They wanted us controlled. They wanted us weak. Her voice rose. They will have none of those things. Instead, they will have our fury. Instead, they will have our defiance. Instead, they will have our absolute determination to be free or die trying. Volkov raised her hand. I am authorizing the Solar Defense Fleet to retake our colonies by any means necessary. I am authorizing Admiral Thorne to engage Council forces wherever they threaten human sovereignty. And I am putting the Council on notice. She leaned forward. You wanted to see how aggressive humanity could be. You're about to find out. In orbit around Sol's moon, Admiral Thorne received the authorization. Around him, his captains waited. 12 ships, against the galaxy. All ships, Thorne said quietly. Battle stations. We're going to war. The first strike came 3 days after Prime Minister Volkov's declaration. Admiral Thorne split his fleet into 4 groups, each with 3 ships. The Council expected a frontal assault. They expected humanity to attack the occupation forces on New Britannia directly. Thorne hit their supply lines instead. Captain Jung commanded the strike group that attacked the Council's main refueling station at Kepler 442. The station sat in orbit around a gas giant, processing fuel for every Council ship in the sector. It was guarded by 2 frigates and thought to be invulnerable. Jung's ships came in fast, using the gas giant's magnetic field to mask their approach. They launched missiles from maximum range, overwhelming the station's defense systems. By the time the guard frigates reacted, it was too late. The station exploded in a ball of fire, taking both frigates with it. Jung didn't stop to celebrate. Her ships were already jumping to FTL, heading for the next target. Captain Okafor struck the communication relay at Proxima Station. Captain, Novak destroyed a logistics hub at the Council's border with Krathi Space. Captain Reyes took out a shipyard that was building new Council warships. In 6 days, humanity destroyed or damaged 17 Council facilities. Not a single human ship was lost. The Council was in chaos. Their military commanders had spent 800 years building a force designed to intimidate, not fight. They had massive ships, powerful weapons, and overwhelming numbers. But they were slow. Their decision-making process required consensus among 12 species. By the time they agreed on a response to one attack, 3 more had already happened. High Arbiter Zahn called an emergency council session. The 12 species gathered in the same chamber where they had voted for humanity's containment. But the mood was very different now. 17 facilities destroyed, Zahn said, his blue glow flickering with agitation. 300 council personnel dead. 5 ships lost. And we haven't managed to land a single hit on the human fleet. Their tactics are unlike anything we've encountered, said a Corthan military advisor. They refuse to engage in direct combat. They strike and retreat before we can respond. It's dishonorable. It's effective, Thessa said grimly. The Vryn Council members' scales had gone dark gray with stress. We designed our fleet to win battles. They designed theirs to win wars. There's a difference. Then we need to force them into a battle we can win, Zahn declared. Increase the occupation forces on New Britannia. If they want their colony back, they'll have to come and take it. And when they do, we'll destroy them. Across the galaxy, in a warrior clan hall on the Krathi homeworld, War Chief Draken watched reports of the human attacks with growing interest. The Krathi were the only species in Council space who had maintained a warrior culture. While other species negotiated and compromised, the Krathi remembered what it meant to fight. Draken's second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Thrax, gestured to the tactical displays. The humans fight like Krathi, fast, aggressive, unpredictable. Better than Krathi, Draken admitted. We fight for honor. They fight for survival. It makes them more dangerous. Should we support them? Draken considered it. The Krathi had voted for the containment following council tradition, but he had felt uneasy about it. The humans reminded him of his own people, centuries ago, before they had been civilized by council membership. Not openly, Draken said finally, but our patrols along the human border can be less vigilant. If human ships need to pass through our space to strike council targets, perhaps our sensors malfunction at convenient times. Thrax grinned, showing his fangs. Understood, War Chief. Sergeant James Park stood in what used to be the Colonial Administration building on New Britannia. Now it was a council command post, filled with alien soldiers and administrators. Park was part of a resistance cell, 23 humans who had gone underground when the occupation began. They had been conducting guerrilla operations for 2 weeks, sabotaging supply lines, gathering intelligence, helping civilians escape to the mountains. Small victories, but they added up. Tonight's mission was different. Park's team had received intelligence about a detention center where Governor Okonkwo was being held. The building was guarded, but not heavily. The council didn't expect a rescue attempt. Park and his squad moved through the sewers, using maintenance tunnels that the council didn't know existed. They emerged in the basement of the detention center at 200 hours local time. 2 guards stood at the entrance to the cell block. Park didn't want to kill them. These soldiers were just following orders. But when he stepped out of the shadows and saw their hands move toward weapons, he didn't hesitate. 2 shots, silenced and precise. The guards dropped. "Move," Park whispered to his team. They swept through the cell block, checking each room. Most were empty. The council had rounded up resistance leaders, but hadn't had time to process everyone. They found Okonkwo in the 3rd cell. She was sitting on a metal bench, still wearing her Marine uniform. Her face was bruised and one arm hung at an awkward angle, but her eyes were clear and focused. "Sergeant Park," she said calmly, as if they were meeting for a scheduled appointment. "Took you long enough." "Sorry, ma'am. Had to wait for the right moment." Park's demolitions expert began working on the electronic lock. "How bad are you hurt?" "Broken arm, some cracked ribs. I'll live." Okonkwo stood carefully. "How many people are you getting out tonight?" "Just you, Governor. We don't have the resources for—" "Then I'm not going," Okonkwo interrupted. "There are 17 civilians in this building. Teachers, doctors, people whose only crime was refusing to bow to the council. If you can only save one person tonight, it shouldn't be me." Park stared at her. They had risked everything for this mission. His entire team could die if they stayed too long. But he saw the determination in Okonkwo's eyes and knew she meant it. "Fine," he said. "But we're getting you out too, everyone or no one." They spent the next 20 minutes breaking open cells and gathering prisoners. 23 people total, including Okonkwo. Moving that many through the tunnels would be nearly impossible. But Park had learned a long time ago that sometimes you had to try impossible things. They were halfway through the basement when alarms began wailing. Someone had discovered the dead guards. Park heard boots pounding above them. "Faster," he urged. His team shepherded the civilians into the tunnels. Park stayed at the rear, covering their escape. Council soldiers poured into the basement, weapons raised. Park fired not to kill but to slow them down. He threw smoke grenades, creating cover. He activated the demolition charges his team had placed earlier, collapsing part of the ceiling. Then he ran. The explosion bought them 10 minutes. They made it through 2 kilometers of tunnels before emerging in an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge. Resistance vehicles were waiting. They loaded the civilians and drove toward the mountain hideouts. Okonkwo sat in the back of Park's vehicle, cradling her broken arm. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for what, ma'am?" "For not leaving those people behind. For remembering that this war isn't just about fighting. It's about protecting." Park didn't respond. He was thinking about the 2 guards he'd killed. Young soldiers, probably younger than him. They had families somewhere. People who loved them. And they were dead because they stood between Park and his objective. War made monsters of everyone. The only question was how much of yourself you could keep when it was over. While Park's team ran rescue operations, Admiral Thorne was planning something much larger. For 3 weeks, his fleet had struck hit-and-run attacks. The Council was off balance, uncertain. Their ships were spread across human space, trying to guard too many targets with too few vessels. It was time to hurt them badly. Thorne called a meeting of all his captains via encrypted channels. Their faces appeared on his screen, broadcasting from different parts of the galaxy. Some were in Council space, some were hiding in neutral systems. All were ready to fight. "We've been stinging them like insects," Thorne said. "Now we're going to hit them like a hammer." Intelligence reports that the Council is assembling a major fleet at the Meridian Nebula. 30 ships, maybe more. They're planning to use it to retake New Britannia and crush any remaining resistance. 30 ships, sir? Captain Zhang looked worried. "We have 12. Even with surprise, those odds are suicide in a fair fight," Thorne agreed. "So we won't fight fair. We're going to use the nebula against them." He brought up a tactical display of the Meridian Nebula. It was a massive cloud of gas and dust, filled with intense radiation. Ships could hide inside it, but their sensors would be limited. Communication would be difficult. It was a tactical nightmare. "The Council fleet is holding position at the nebula's edge," Thorne continued. "They're waiting for reinforcements before moving on New Britannia. We're going to hit them while they're vulnerable. Our ships will enter the nebula and attack from inside. The radiation will mask our approach. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be in knife-fighting range." "And once we're inside the nebula with them?" Okafor asked. "We hurt them as badly as we can, then we run," Thorne said bluntly. "This isn't about winning. It's about proving that attacking us costs more than they're willing to pay." The attack was planned for 72 hours later. Thorne's ships gathered at a rendezvous point, checking weapons and preparing for what might be a one-way mission. The crews were quiet, focused. They knew the odds. They knew they might die. They also knew why they were fighting. When the time came, all 12 human ships jumped to the Meridian Nebula. They emerged from FTL at the nebula's edge and immediately plunged into the swirling gas clouds. Sensors went haywire. Communications became choppy. It was like being blind and deaf. But humanity had prepared for this. Each ship had detailed maps of the nebula, created using years of probe data. They knew where the dense gas clouds were, where the radiation storms formed, where the Council fleet was holding position. Thorne's ship, the Indomitable, led the formation. They pushed deeper into the nebula, using short-range scanners to navigate. After 20 minutes of flying blind, they emerged from a particularly dense cloud and found themselves face-to-face with the Council fleet. "All ships, weapons free," Thorne ordered. "Give them hell." The battle that followed was chaos. Human ships darted between Council vessels, firing missiles at point-blank range. The Council tried to organize a response, but their communication systems couldn't punch through the nebula's interference. Ships fired on each other by mistake. Formations fell apart. Thorne's tactical officer called out targets. Frigate portside. Cruiser at heading 270. Destroyer moving to intercept. Target the frigate, Thorne ordered. All forward batteries, fire. The Indomitable's main guns spoke, magnetic accelerators hurling projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The Council frigate's shields flared, then failed. Holes appeared in its hull. Atmosphere vented into space. But the Council wasn't helpless. A celestial battleship managed to lock onto Captain Reyes's destroyer. One shot from its main weapon, and Reyes's ship was cut in half. 40 crew members dead in an instant. Reyes is down, someone reported. Thorne felt the loss like a physical blow, but there was no time to mourn. All ships execute Plan Delta, he ordered. Hit and fade. Don't let them pin you down. The human ships scattered using the nebula's gas clouds for cover. They attacked from unexpected angles. Disabled ships rather than destroying them created as much confusion as possible. The Council fleet was larger and more powerful, but it was designed for traditional warfare. Formation battles, clear lines. Honor. There was no honor in the Meridian Nebula. Just survival. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 7 Council ships were destroyed. 15 more were damaged. The rest retreated back to Council space, their formations broken and their confidence shattered. Humanity had won, but the victory was Pyrrhic. 3 human ships were destroyed. 2,000 crew members dead, including Captain Reyes and her entire complement. 5 more ships were damaged, some barely able to jump to FTL. Thorne sat on his bridge listening to casualty reports. 2,000 people, 2,000 families who would receive notifications that their loved ones weren't coming home. 2,000 futures ended. Was it worth it, sir? His tactical officer asked quietly. Thorne looked at the tactical display, showing the Council fleet retreating. For the first time in the war, they had been truly hurt. For the first time, they had tasted defeat. Ask me again when this is over, Thorne said. Right now, I honestly don't know. Back in the Council chambers, High Arbiter Zahn watched reports of the battle with growing alarm. 7 ships destroyed, 15 damaged, 3,000 Council personnel dead, and the human fleet, though bloodied, was still operational. This was supposed to be our decisive blow, Thessa said. Her scales had gone completely black, a Vryn expression of despair. Instead, it's become their propaganda victory. Every species in the galaxy is watching. They see us as weak now. Then we escalate, Zahn said. No more small occupation forces. No more measured responses. We assemble the full Council armada. Every ship, every species, every weapon we have. We crush humanity so completely that no one ever dares defy us again. That will take months to organize, a Corthan advisor pointed out. And in the meantime, the humans will continue their attacks. Let them, Zahn said coldly. Every attack they make gives us justification for what comes next. We'll give them enough rope to hang themselves, and then we'll show the galaxy what happens to species who forget their place. He turned to face the Council. The humans wanted a war. They're going to get one, but not the war they're expecting. We're going to make them understand the price of defiance. We're going to break them so thoroughly that in 1,000 years their descendants will still remember the cost of standing against the Council. The vote was called. This time it wasn't unanimous. 2 species abstained. But 10 voted yes, and that was enough. The galaxy was about to see the full might of the Galactic Council unleashed. And humanity, bloodied but defiant, was about to learn whether courage alone could win against overwhelming power. Admiral Thorne received word of the Council's mobilization 4 days later. Intelligence estimated they were assembling somewhere between 200 and 300 ships. The largest armada ever gathered in galactic history, against 12 damaged human ships. Sir, we can't win this, Captain Okafor said during an emergency meeting. We hurt them at Meridian, but if they come at us with everything they have... I know, Thorne said. He looked tired, older than his 60 years. But we can't stop now. The moment we show weakness, the moment we back down, every sacrifice we've made will be meaningless. So what do? Thorne pulled up a star map showing human and Council space. We do what we've always done. We fight, we adapt. We refuse to quit. And maybe, just maybe, we make them question whether victory is worth the cost. He highlighted several systems on the map. These are Council logistics hubs. Without them, their armada can't operate. We hit these, we strand 200 ships in the middle of nowhere with no fuel and no supplies. That's a suicide mission, Zhang said flatly. Probably, Thorne agreed. But if we don't try, New Britannia falls. Then the next colony. Then the next. Eventually they reach Earth. And then it's over. He looked at each captain in turn. I'm not ordering anyone to come. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to stand down, no judgment. You've all already done more than anyone could ask. No one moved. No one spoke. Then one by one each captain nodded. Stupid humans, Okafor said with a slight smile. Never knowing when to quit. It's what we do best, Thorne replied. Let's make sure the council remembers that. Sergeant James Park crouched in the ruins of what used to be a school on New Britannia. His squad was pinned down by council forces caught in the open during a supply run. Plasma fire scorched the air above their heads. The building around them was slowly being reduced to rubble. Private Chen, the youngest member of the squad, was bleeding from a shoulder wound. Corporal Hayes was trying to stop the bleeding while still returning fire. Park's rifle was down to its last power cell. They had been fighting for 7 months straight, and it showed. Sergeant, we need to fall back, Hayes shouted over the noise. We can't hold this position. Park checked his tactical display. Council forces were advancing from 3 sides. The only escape route was through the playground behind the school. 50 meters of open ground with no cover. On my mark, we move, Park said. He pulled his last grenade from his belt. 3, 2, 1, go! He threw the grenade toward the advancing council troops and ran. His squad followed, sprinting across the playground. Plasma bolts chewed up the ground around them. Chen stumbled and Hayes grabbed her, half carrying her toward cover. They made it to a collapsed building on the far side and dove behind broken walls. Park did a quick count. Everyone was alive. Barely. That's when they heard it. Voices. Human voices, but wrong somehow. Screaming. Begging. Park peered around the corner and felt his stomach drop. A group of council soldiers had captured 3 humans. Civilians by their clothes. They were on their knees, hands bound behind their backs. A Vrin officer stood over them, weapon drawn. This is the price of resistance, the officer was saying, loud enough for Park's squad to hear. For every council soldier you kill, we execute 10 of yours. For every attack, 10 more die. You cannot win. The officer raised his weapon. Park didn't think. He just moved. His rifle came up and he fired. The shot took the Vrin officer in the chest, dropping him instantly. Park's squad opened fire, hitting the other council soldiers before they could react. In 30 seconds, it was over. 8 council soldiers dead. The 3 civilians were alive but terrified. Park ran to them, cutting their bindings. Are you hurt? No, we're okay, one of them said. An older woman who was shaking badly. They pulled us out of our homes. Said they were going to make an example. Get to the safe houses, Park told them. Follow the green markers. Don't stop for anything. The civilians ran. Park's squad prepared to move out. But then Chen spoke up, her voice quiet. Sergeant, we just killed 8 council soldiers in cold blood. They were executing civilians, but we didn't give them a chance to surrender. Park looked at the bodies scattered around the playground. Young soldiers, not much older than Chen. Dead because they had been following orders from officers who thought terror was a valid tactic. They were going to kill those people, Hayes said. We did what we had to do. Did we? Chen challenged. Or did we become just like them? Park didn't have an answer. He was too tired to have an answer. 7 months of fighting had worn away his certainty, leaving only exhaustion and doubt. Move out, he said finally. We can worry about our souls after we survive. The war was changing humanity, and not always for the better. On Earth, Prime Minister Volkov faced her own moral crisis. Reports were coming in from the front lines. Human forces were winning battles, but the methods were becoming increasingly brutal. At Kepler Station, a human strike team had destroyed a council supply depot, killing everyone inside. 300 council personnel, including 60 civilians. The team claimed they didn't know civilians were present. Intelligence suggested they did. On the colony world of Terra Verde, resistance fighters had ambushed a council convoy. Instead of taking prisoners, they executed the survivors. 23 soldiers shot while trying to surrender. In Earth's orbital shipyards, a new faction was gaining support. They called themselves the Purity Front. Their message was simple. The council wanted to exterminate humanity. Humanity should return the favor. No negotiations, no prisoners. Total war until every council species was either destroyed or enslaved. Volkov stood in her office watching news feeds showing Purity Front rallies. Thousands of humans chanting slogans about human supremacy, about making the council pay, about showing the galaxy who the true superior species was. Her chief of staff, Marcus Rodriguez, stood beside her. They're gaining support. Latest polls show 37% of Earth's population agrees with their basic message. Not necessarily the extremism, but the idea that we should pursue total victory. Total victory, Volkov repeated. What does that even mean? We kill every Celestial? Every Vryn? Every Korthan? There are billions of them. We'd have to commit genocide on a scale that would make us monsters. Some people think we're already fighting for our survival, Rodriguez said carefully. They think if we don't destroy the council completely, they'll just try again in 50 years or 100. Better to end the threat permanently. Volkov turned to face him. And when we're done committing genocide, what then? We become the thing we're fighting against. We become the species everyone fears. We become the reason the next containment protocol exists. Ma'am, I'm not arguing for it. I'm just telling you what people are saying. I know. Volkov sat down heavily. This is the price of rage. We unleashed humanity's fury to protect ourselves. Now I'm watching it consume us. We're becoming what they accused us of being. She pulled up a secure communication channel. Get me Admiral Thorne. It's time we had a conversation about where this war is going. Across the galaxy, Admiral Thorne was having his own doubts. His fleet had successfully disrupted Council logistics, stranding much of their armada without fuel. But the cost had been high. 2 more ships destroyed, 500 more crew members dead. And the Council was adapting, learning to fight like humans fought. The latest intelligence was disturbing. The Council had authorized their military commanders to use any means necessary to end the war. That included targeting civilian populations. 3 human colonies had been hit with orbital bombardments, not of military targets, but of cities. Millions dead. Thorne sat in his ready room reviewing casualty reports. The numbers were becoming abstract, too big to really comprehend. But every now and then a name would jump out at him. Someone he'd served with, someone whose family he knew, and the weight of it would hit him all over again. A knock came at his door. Come in, Captain Zhang entered. Her ship, the Beijing, was one of only 7 human warships still operational. She looked as tired as Thorne felt. Sir, we need to talk about what happened at Novara Station. Thorne knew what she meant. A week ago, one of their strike teams had encountered a Council medical ship. The ship was marked with neutral symbols, clearly non-combatant. Standard rules of warfare said you didn't attack medical vessels. The strike team had destroyed it anyway. The after-action report said they believed the ship was a valid military target, Thorne said. The after-action report is bullshit, sir, Zhang said bluntly. I reviewed the tactical footage. They knew it was a medical ship. They killed it because they were angry. Because they'd just lost friends at the Kepler attack. Because they wanted revenge. What do you want me to do, Captain? Court-martial them? Execute them for war crimes while we're in the middle of fighting for our survival? I want us to remember who we are, Zhang said. My grandparents fled China because the government there forgot the difference between security and oppression. They came to Earth believing humanity was better than that. Was their faith misplaced? Thorne didn't answer immediately. He thought about the 3 Council civilians he'd seen executed on a news feed last week. Young beings, barely adults, shot by human soldiers who claimed they were armed. They weren't. I don't know anymore, Thorne admitted. I used to think we were the good guys, fighting for freedom, for survival, but now, I look at what we're doing and I see the same cruelty the Council showed us. Maybe there are no good guys in war, just people trying not to become monsters. Then what's the point? Zhang asked. If we become like them, if we commit the same atrocities, how are we any better? We're not, Thorne said. That's the terrible truth. War doesn't make you better. It just reveals who you really are when everything civilized gets stripped away. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. Maya Reeves was requesting immediate contact. Thorne brought her up on the screen. Admiral, we have a situation, Reeves said. Her face was pale. The Council just issued an ultimatum. They're threatening to use something called a starbreaker. A what? A weapon that can cause a star to go supernova. They're saying if we don't surrender within 72 hours, they'll use it on Sol. They'll destroy Earth, Mars, every planet in our home system. The silence in the room was absolute. Zhang looked like she'd been punched. Thorne felt his mind go blank for a moment, unable to process what he'd just heard.
Can they do that?
He finally asked. Do they actually have this weapon? Intelligence is unclear, Reeves said. We found references to the Starbreaker in old council records. It was supposedly developed during the last Great Galactic War, 800 years ago, but there's no confirmation it still exists. This could be a bluff. Or it could be real, Zhang said. And if it's real and they use it, 8 billion people die. Everyone we're fighting for, gone. Thorne stood up and began pacing. 72 hours, 3 days to decide between surrender and the possible extinction of humanity. Admiral, Reeves said carefully, I'd like permission to investigate. If the Starbreaker exists, it would be held in the Council's most secure facility on Concordia. I can assemble a team, infiltrate the facility, and determine if the threat is real. That's insane, Zhang said. Concordia is the most heavily defended station in Council space. You'd never make it in, let alone back out. I have contacts, Reeves said. The Krathi have been quietly supporting us. War Chief Draken might be willing to help. His warriors could get us into Council space without being detected. Thorne considered it. A Black Ops mission deep into enemy territory, based on the hope that an alien warrior species would help them. It was desperate. It was dangerous. It was their only option. Do it, Thorne ordered. But Reeves, if you find that weapon, you destroy it. Whatever it takes. We're not giving them the power to hold 8 billion lives hostage. Understood, sir. I'll assemble a team and leave within 12 hours. After Reeves signed off, Zhang turned to Thorne. What if she doesn't find it? What if it's real and she can't destroy it? What do we do then? Then we have a choice, Thorne said. We surrender and hope the Council shows mercy, or we call their bluff and pray we're right. And if we're wrong, then we've killed everyone we were trying to protect, Thorne said quietly. And nothing we've done will have mattered. On Concordia, War Chief Draken received Maya Reeves in a secure location far from Council eyes. The meeting place was a freight warehouse, neutral territory where various species conducted business that didn't bear scrutiny. Reeves came alone, as requested. Draken respected that. It took courage to walk unarmed into a meeting with a being who could tear her apart with his bare hands. You wish to infiltrate the Council's inner sanctum, Draken said. It wasn't a question. You understand this will likely be a suicide mission? I understand, Reeves said. But if the Starbreaker is real, it's a suicide weapon pointed at my entire species. I have to know. Draken studied her. Humans were fascinating. So small, so fragile, so absolutely unwilling to quit. The Krathi had spent centuries trying to breed that quality into their warriors. Humans seemed to be born with it. The Council believes they can threaten you into submission, Draken said. They do not understand humans. You would rather die fighting than live in chains. Is that so different from the Krathi? Draken showed his fangs in what might have been a smile. No, that is why I will help you. Not because I support your war, but because I respect your spirit. The Council has grown weak, comfortable. They have forgotten that true strength comes from those who have nothing left to lose. He pulled up a holographic display of Concordia. The Starbreaker, if it exists, would be held in Vault 7, deep inside the station, protected by multiple security layers. Getting in will require Krathi credentials. I can provide those. Getting out will require luck, skill, and a willingness to die if necessary. I can manage all three, Reeves said. Then we begin preparations. You will need a team. 4 people, no more. They must be able to pass as Krathi servants. Can you find such people? I can, Reeves said. She thought of the resistance fighters on New Britannia, the special forces operators on Earth, the intelligence agents scattered across the galaxy. Finding 4 people willing to die for a chance to save humanity wouldn't be difficult. Finding 4 people who could live with what they might have to do to succeed, that was harder. There is one more thing, Draken said. If you find the Starbreaker and it is real, you must destroy it completely, not just disable it. If the Council ever rebuilds it, they will use it. Are you prepared for that responsibility? I'm prepared, Reeves said. Good. Draken handed her a data chip. These are the access codes and security protocols. Memorize them and destroy the chip. We move in 48 hours. As Reeves left the warehouse, she thought about what she was about to do. Break into the most secure facility in known space. Steal or destroy a weapon capable of killing billions. all while the fate of humanity rested on whether she succeeded. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of thing humans did best. Back on Earth, the Purity Front was holding its largest rally yet. 10,000 people filled the stadium, waving banners and chanting slogans. Their leader, a former military officer named Colonel Marcus Steele, stood at the podium. "The Council wants us to surrender," Steele shouted. "They threaten us with extinction. They say we should bow down and accept their rule. What do we say to that?" "Never," the crowd roared back. "We say we'll fight them on every world. We'll fight them in every system. And when we're done fighting, we'll make sure they never threaten us again. We'll show them what happens when you try to cage humanity." Ambassador Chen Wei watched the rally on her tablet, feeling sick. This was what their rage had created, a movement that wanted not just freedom but revenge, not just survival but domination. She thought about Governor Okonkwo, still leading resistance on New Britannia, about Sergeant Park and his squad, fighting not for conquest but for survival, about Admiral Thorne, carrying the weight of every death on his shoulders. They were fighting to protect humanity. But humanity was becoming something they might not recognize when the war ended. The question was whether anyone would survive long enough to care. 72 hours until the Council's ultimatum expired. 72 hours to find the Starbreaker, or to decide if humanity was willing to gamble 8 billion lives on the hope that it didn't exist. The reckoning had begun, but no one knew yet how it would end. Maya Reeves stood in the cargo hold of a Krathi transport ship, 20 hours away from Concordia. Her team was dressed in Krathi servant uniforms, their faces partially concealed by ceremonial masks. If anyone looked closely, they'd see through the disguise. The trick was not to let anyone look closely. War Chief Draken had provided them with credentials identifying them as members of his personal staff. It was risky for him, supporting humans so openly. If the Council discovered his involvement, the Krathi could face sanctions or worse. But Draken had made it clear he didn't care. "The Council has forgotten what honor means," he'd said before they departed. "Honor is not about following rules. It's about doing what's right, even when it cost you everything." Reeves checked her equipment one last time. They had 3 objectives. First, locate Vault 7. Second, determine if the Starbreaker existed. Third, destroy it if it did. Simple in theory. Nearly impossible in practice, and 10 minutes to docking, the Krathi pilot announced. "Remember, you are servants. Keep your heads down, speak only when spoken to, and follow War Chief Draken's instructions exactly." Draken himself would escort them through the station. A war chief visiting Concordia wasn't unusual. The Krathi maintained a diplomatic presence even during the war. What was unusual was what he planned to do once they were inside. The transport docked at Concordia's military wing. Security was tight. Council guards inspected every ship, every crew member, every piece of cargo. Reeves felt her heart hammering as they walked down the ramp. A Celestial security officer approached Draken. "War Chief, this is an unexpected visit. The Council did not receive notification of your arrival." "I require no permission to visit," Draken said, his voice carrying the absolute authority of a warrior commander. "I have business with the Military Advisory Council. These are my attendants. They go where I go." The security officer hesitated. Krathi warriors were notoriously difficult to manage. Questioning them too aggressively could be seen as an insult, potentially triggering a diplomatic incident. "Of course, War Chief. Please proceed. However, your attendants will need to be scanned." This was the critical moment. The scanners would detect their human physiology. The disguise would fail. Everything would end before it began. But Draken stepped forward, putting himself between his team and the security officer. His posture was aggressive, threatening. "You dare suggest my personal staff require scanning? You question my judgment? My honor?" The Celestial backed up a step. Around them, other Krathi warriors who served as station security turned to watch. The tension was immediate and dangerous. "I meant no offense, War Chief. But regulations mean nothing," Draken interrupted. "I have walked these halls for 20 years. I have shed blood defending this station. And now you treat me like a criminal? Perhaps the Krathi should reconsider our alliance with the Council." It was a calculated bluff. The Council couldn't afford to lose Krathi support, not with the human war ongoing. The security officer knew it. "My apologies, War Chief. Please proceed." "No scanning will be necessary. They were through." Reeves allowed herself a small breath of relief as they moved deeper into the station. But the hard part was just beginning. Vault 7 was located in the station's deepest level, protected by multiple security checkpoints. Draken's credentials got them past the first 3. The 4th required biometric scanning that even Draken couldn't bypass. "This is where we separate," Draken said quietly. "I can go no further without raising suspicion." The vault entrance is through that corridor 50 meters ahead. 3 guards. Beyond them, you'll face automated defenses and electronic locks. Can you manage? "We'll manage," Reeves said. She turned to her team. 4 of Earth's best operatives, all volunteers. Sarah Kim, weapons specialist. James Okonkwo, Governor Okonkwo's nephew and explosives expert. Maria Santos, hacker and systems infiltrator. And Tom Park, Sergeant Park's younger brother and close-quarters combat expert. All of them had personal reasons to be here. All of them knew they probably wouldn't leave alive. "Thank you, War Chief," Reeves said. "If we don't make it back, you will make it back," Draken said firmly. "Because humans do not know how to quit, now go. And may your ancestors watch over you." They moved through the corridor, keeping to the shadows. The 3 guards stood at attention outside a massive vault door. Celestials, heavily armed and alert. Taking them by force would trigger alarms immediately. Santos pulled out a small device, something she'd been working on for months. "This should disrupt their neural patterns for about 90 seconds. Long enough to get past them." "Should?" Kim asked. "Well, I've never tested it on Celestials before. But the theory is sound." "Theory," Tom Park muttered. "That's reassuring." Santos activated the device. A pulse of energy swept outward, invisible but effective. The 3 guards stiffened, their blue glow flickering. Then they collapsed, unconscious but alive. 90 seconds, Santos said. "Move." They rushed to the vault door. Santos began working on the electronic lock while Kim and Park dragged the unconscious guards out of sight. James Okonkwo prepared charges, ready to blow the door if hacking failed. 60 seconds left. The lock was sophisticated, layers upon layers of encryption. But Santos was better. Her fingers flew across her portable terminal, breaking through each layer. 30 seconds left. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, 20 seconds. 15, 10. The lock clicked open. The massive vault door swung outward with a hiss of hydraulics. They pulled the guards inside and sealed the door behind them. They were in. The vault was enormous, a warehouse-sized chamber filled with artifacts and weapons from across galactic history. At the center, on a raised platform, sat something that made Reeves's blood run cold. The Starbreaker. It was real. A cylindrical device about 3 meters long, covered in strange markings and glowing softly with internal power. Around it, holographic displays showed star systems, targeting data, yield calculations. It was a doomsday weapon and it was armed. "Oh God," Santos whispered. "It's not just real. It's active." They were serious about using it. Reeves approached the device carefully. The holographic displays showed Sol as the primary target. Everything was ready. All the Council needed to do was input the final authorization code, and Earth would be destroyed. "Can we disable it?" Kim asked. Santos was already studying the device, her scanner running over its surface. After a moment, her face went pale. "This is worse than I thought. It's not just one weapon. It's connected to a network. There are 3 more Starbreakers hidden across Council space. If we destroy this one without proper shutdown procedures, the others activate automatically as a failsafe. So we can't just blow it up," James said. "Not without killing billions anyway," Santos confirmed. "We need to shut down the entire network. That requires accessing the main control system." She pointed to a terminal at the far end of the vault. "That's the master control. But it's going to need authorization codes. High-level ones. Codes that only Council members would have." Reeves thought quickly. They had maybe 10 minutes before someone noticed the guards were missing. 10 minutes to shut down a network of doomsday weapons. Then she remembered something. She pulled out her datapad and accessed the files Maya had stolen months ago during her intelligence work. Buried in the diplomatic correspondence were security protocols, including emergency override codes for Council weapon systems. "I might have something," she said. She moved to the terminal and began inputting codes. The system rejected the first 2. On the 3rd try, something changed. A holographic face appeared above the terminal. Not celestial, not Vryn, not any species Reeves recognized. Ancient, alien, and cold. "Authorization recognized," the face said in a voice that predated any current Council species. Starbreaker network shutdown requires confirmation from Council High Arbiter. Proceeding without authorization will trigger fail-safe protocols. Can you fake the authorization? Kim asked. Santos shook her head. Not with biometric verification. We'd need Zahn himself. Then we get him, Reeves said. She knew it was insane even as she said it, but they had no choice. Alarms began wailing. Someone had found the unconscious guards. Change of plans, Reeves said. Santos, keep working on that system. Find any way to shut it down without triggering the failsafe. The rest of you with me. We're going to get High Arbiter Zahn. They burst from the vault just as security forces arrived. Tom Park moved like lightning, disabling 3 guards before they could raise their weapons. Kim provided covering fire. James threw a smoke grenade, filling the corridor with thick gray clouds. They fought their way toward the upper levels. Every meter was contested. Council security forces poured in from all directions. But humanity had learned to fight against superior numbers. Speed, aggression, unpredictability. They reached the council chambers level and found it in chaos. News of the vault breach had spread. Council members were being evacuated. And there, surrounded by celestial guards, was High Arbiter Zahn. Reeves made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She raised her weapon and fired, not at Zahn, but at the supports holding up a decorative sculpture near the guards. The massive piece of art crashed down, scattering the security detail. Her team rushed forward. Tom Park grabbed Zahn before the Celestial could react. Kim disabled the remaining guards with precision shots. They had their hostage. Move, Reeves ordered. They ran back toward the vault, dragging Zahn with them. The Celestial struggled, but Tom Park's grip was unbreakable. They reached the vault as more security forces closed in. Santos was still at the terminal, desperately trying to find a solution. "I've got him," Reeves called out. She forced Zahn toward the biometric scanner. "Shut down the Starbreaker network, now." Zahn's eyes blazed with fury. "Never. If I do, we lose our only leverage. Humanity will never surrender. And if you don't, I'll kill you right here," Reeves said. Her weapon was pressed against Zahn's head. She meant it. In that moment, she was willing to commit murder to save her species. "Then kill me," Zahn said calmly. "But know that without my authorization, the failsafe activates in 3 hours. Every Starbreaker fires simultaneously. Earth, Mars, New Britannia, Terra Verde. All of them destroyed. Can you live with that?" Reeves's hand shook. She had never killed in cold blood before, never executed a helpless prisoner. But 8 billion lives hung in the balance. Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Wait," Santos called out. "I've found something. There's a back door in the system, an emergency shutdown protocol from when the Starbreaker was first built. It requires 2 conditions. First, proof that the weapon is about to be used for genocide. Second, a living witness from the targeted species." She pulled up data on her screen. The system's original designers built in a safeguard. They feared the Council might one day use the Starbreaker for extermination rather than defense. "If I can prove the Council targeted Earth with intent to commit genocide, and you as a human verify it, the system will shut down automatically." "Will it work?" Reeves asked. "I don't know, but it's better than mass murder." Reeves lowered her weapon. She pulled up the holographic displays showing Sol targeted, the yield calculations designed to sterilize every planet in the system. She recorded everything, then transmitted it to the terminal. "Maya Reeves, citizen of Earth, human," she said clearly. "I testify that the Galactic Council targeted my species for genocide using the Starbreaker network. I present this evidence and request emergency shutdown protocols." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the ancient holographic face reappeared. Evidence verified. Genocide protocols confirmed. Starbreaker network entering emergency shutdown. All weapons will be disabled within 60 seconds. The devices throughout the vault began powering down. The glow faded. The targeting displays went dark. One by one across Council space, the Starbreakers deactivated. Zahn stared in horror. "What have you done? That network was 800 years of work, our final defense." "Your final threat, you mean," Reeves said. She was exhausted, shaking with adrenaline. "You were willing to kill 8 billion people to win a war. That's not defense, that's genocide." She turned to her team. We need to get out of here. Now. But even as she said it, she knew escape was impossible. The vault was surrounded. Hundreds of Council security forces waited outside. They had succeeded in their mission, but they would never leave alive. Then War Chief Draken's voice came over their communications. Human team, this is Draken. I am broadcasting your evidence across all Council networks. Every species is seeing what Zahn planned. Every citizen knows their leaders were willing to commit genocide. Across the galaxy, the recording spread like wildfire. Humans saw it. Council species saw it. Independent worlds saw it. The evidence was undeniable. The Council had been ready to exterminate an entire species. The reaction was immediate and devastating. 3 Council species withdrew their support immediately. The Mirren declared neutrality. The Gresh called for Zahn's removal. Even the Vryn, humanity's oldest enemies in this war, began questioning their involvement. On Earth, Admiral Thorne received the transmission. He sat in his ready room, watching the evidence play out. The Starbreaker, the targeting data, Sol as the primary target. Everything humanity had feared was confirmed. But there was something else in the transmission. A message from Reeves, recorded just before she shut down the network. Admiral, if you're seeing this, we succeeded. The Starbreaker is disabled. But the Council was willing to use it. They were willing to kill everyone we love to win this war. You need to know that. And you need to decide what humanity does with that knowledge. Thorne thought about it. They had proof of the Council's intentions. They had the moral high ground. They could use this to rally support, to turn the galaxy against the Council, to press their advantage. Or they could do something different. He opened a channel to all human forces, every ship, every colony, every resistance cell. His face appeared on screens across human space. This is Admiral Marcus Thorne. 8 hours ago, a team of human operatives infiltrated Concordia Station and discovered that the Council was planning to exterminate every human in the Sol system using a weapon of mass destruction. They succeeded in disabling that weapon. The evidence is now public. The galaxy knows what the Council was willing to do. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. We could use this information to destroy the Council. We could turn the galaxy against them. We could make them pay for every death, every colony lost, every injustice we've suffered. We have that power now. On New Britannia, Sergeant Park and his squad listened. In the resistance hideouts, fighters waited to hear what came next. On the remaining human warships, crews stood at attention. But if we do that, we become what they accused us of being, Thorne continued. We become the aggressive, vengeful species that can't be trusted. We prove that humanity's rage is something to fear rather than respect. He thought about all the people he'd lost, Captain Reyes and her crew. 2,000 soldiers at Meridian, millions of civilians on bombarded colonies. Every single one of them deserved justice. I have been authorized by Earth's government to make an offer to the Council. We will agree to a ceasefire effective immediately. We will enter negotiations for a permanent peace, but our terms are non-negotiable. All human colonies are returned with full sovereignty. The containment protocols are permanently revoked. Humanity receives equal representation on a reformed council, and most importantly, both sides agree to face justice for war crimes committed during this conflict. He leaned forward. We're not asking for surrender. We're not demanding revenge. We're asking for what we should have had from the beginning. Respect, equality, freedom. The Council can give us that peacefully, or we can continue this war until there's nothing left worth fighting for. But understand this. If the Council refuses, if they choose to keep fighting, humanity will not hold back. We will fight with everything we have, and we will win or we will die trying. The choice is theirs. On Concordia, Ambassador Chen Wei watched Thorne's broadcast from the emergency council session. The chamber was in chaos. Council members were shouting at each other. Some called for Zahn's immediate removal. Others demanded the war continue. The unity that had existed 8 months ago was shattered. Chen had been recalled to Concordia to participate in negotiations. She stood now at the same platform where she had stood when this all began. But everything was different. The Council has a decision to make, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. You can accept Admiral Thorne's terms and end this war with your authority intact. or you can refuse and watch as every species in the galaxy turns against you. Because they've seen the evidence. They know you were willing to commit genocide. How long do you think your power lasts after that? High Arbiter Zahn, stripped of most of his authority but still present, stood slowly. You've destroyed everything we built. 800 years of peace. Galactic stability. All gone because you refused to accept your place. Our place? Chen's voice was hard. You tried to cage us. You tried to steal our resources. And when we resisted, you tried to exterminate us. That's not asking us to accept our place. That's asking us to accept slavery. She looked around the chamber at all 12 species. But here's what you don't understand. This war was never just about humanity. It was about every species you've ever pushed around, every civilization you've controlled, every voice you've silenced. We fought for ourselves, yes, but we also fought for everyone who couldn't. A Mirren council member stood. Ambassador Chen is right. The council has operated on the assumption that older means wiser. That established power gives automatic authority, but we've seen what happens when that authority goes unchecked. We've seen the corruption. One by one, other species voiced their concerns. The vote that had once been unanimous was now fractured. Some species wanted peace. Some wanted reform. Some wanted to continue fighting. After 3 days of debate, a vote was finally called. Not on whether to accept Thorne's terms, but on whether to remove Zahn and restructure the council entirely. The vote was 8-4. Zahn was removed. A new council would be formed with expanded membership and term limits. And humanity would have 3 seats equal to any other species. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Over the next 6 months, the Concordia Accords were drafted. Every issue, every grievance, every wound had to be addressed. Ambassador Chen led the human delegation, working 18-hour days to ensure the peace was real and lasting. The accords included provisions for war crimes tribunals. Both humans and council species would face justice for atrocities committed. It wasn't popular on either side, but it was necessary. Sergeant Park testified about the executions he'd witnessed. Council officers admitted to targeting civilians. The Purity Front's leaders were arrested and tried for war crimes. Governor Sarah Okonkwo was released from council custody and returned to New Britannia. The colony was in ruins, but it was being rebuilt. Council species contributed resources as part of the reparations. Even the Krathi sent engineers to help. Okonkwo stood at the dedication ceremony for the war memorial, a massive wall listing every name of those who died on both sides. Human and alien together. Her daughter's name was there, among the civilians killed in the initial fighting. We remember, Okonkwo said to the crowd gathered, not to keep hatred alive, but to ensure we never forget the cost of it. This war should never have happened. But it did. And now we carry the responsibility to make sure the sacrifices meant something. Admiral Thorne retired from military service and returned to Earth. He spent his days visiting families of fallen soldiers, attending memorials, trying to make peace with the decisions he'd made. Some days were easier than others. One day, a young Celestial approached him at the New Britannia Memorial. The being was barely an adult, its blue glow still uncertain and flickering. Admiral Thorne? Just Thorne now, he said. I'm not an admiral anymore. My grandfather's name is on this wall. Arbiter Zahn, he died in prison 3 months ago. The shame killed him as much as his age. Thorne looked at the name, carved in stone alongside thousands of others. I'm sorry for your loss. Don't be, the young Celestial said. He was wrong. The council was wrong. I just wanted you to know that some of us understand that, and some of us are grateful. Grateful? For not destroying us when you had the chance. My grandfather would have in your position. He would have used the evidence to rally the galaxy against us, would have crushed every council species to ensure Celestials could never threaten anyone again. That's how he thought. Power over others. The Celestial's glow strengthened slightly. But you didn't. You chose peace when you could have chosen revenge. That's the difference between you and him. That's why humanity earned respect instead of fear. Thorne thought about all the decisions he'd made during the war, the attacks he'd ordered, the lives he'd taken, the line between necessary force and unnecessary cruelty. He still wasn't sure where that line was or if he'd stayed on the right side of it. We weren't perfect, Thorne said. We did terrible things during the war, things I'm not proud of. War makes everyone terrible, the young Celestial said. The measure of a species isn't whether they can avoid darkness. It's whether they can find their way back to the light afterward. 5 years after the war ended, Ambassador Chen addressed a new graduating class at Earth's Diplomatic Academy. 200 young humans ready to represent their species across the galaxy. She looked at their eager faces and remembered her own graduation, decades ago. Back when she'd believed diplomacy could solve anything. The galaxy is not fair, she told them. It's not just. Species will try to take advantage of you because you're young, because you're different, because you're weaker or stronger or just inconvenient to their plans. She walked among the graduates. The council tried to contain us. They underestimated us. They thought we would accept limitation because we had no choice. They were wrong. But they were also victims of their own assumptions. They let fear drive them to cruelty. Don't let that be humanity's legacy. We fought a war. We won, but the hardest part isn't winning. It's building something better in the peace that follows. It's taking all that rage, all that fury that drove us to fight and channeling it into something constructive. She smiled. You are humanity's future ambassadors. Not soldiers. Not conquerors, ambassadors. Your weapon is not a gun. It's understanding. Your armor is not military might. It's integrity. Your ammunition is not hatred. It's hope. The galaxy feared humanity's rage. Now they respect it. But more importantly, they respect what we did with that rage. We didn't burn the galaxy down. We built it back up stronger and more fair than before. Chen looked at each face in turn. That's your mission now. Not to prove humanity is superior, but to prove we're capable of being better. Every single day, in every interaction. That's how we honor those who died. That's how we ensure this peace lasts. The graduates stood and applauded. Chen watched them and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope for humanity's future. On New Britannia, a new generation was growing up in the rebuilt colony. Children who barely remembered the war. They played in parks that had been battlefields, attended schools built on the ruins of military installations, made friends with young aliens from council species who came to study human culture. Sergeant Park, now just James Park, teacher at the colony's primary school, watched them play. His squad had disbanded after the war. Some stayed on New Britannia. Some went home to Earth. Some, like Chen, hadn't made it home at all. But they had fought for this. For children who could play without fear. For a future where species cooperated instead of conquered. For a galaxy where being different didn't mean being dangerous. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, ran up to him. Mr. Park, is it true you were a soldier during the war? I was, Park admitted. Did you kill aliens? Park thought about how to answer. About the guards he'd shot. The council soldiers he'd fought. The lives he'd taken in the name of survival. I did things I'm not proud of, he said carefully. War makes people do terrible things. But it's over now. And we have a chance to build something better. That's what matters. The girl considered this. My best friend is Vryn. Her grandparents fought against humans during the war. But we're friends anyway. Is that okay? Park smiled. That's more than okay. That's everything we fought for. The girl nodded and ran back to her friends. A group of human and alien children playing together without a care in the galaxy. Park watched them go and thought about Governor Okonkwo's words at the memorial dedication. The war should never have happened. But it did. And now they carried the responsibility to make sure the sacrifices meant something. Looking at those children, laughing and playing together, Park thought maybe they had succeeded after all. Across the galaxy, humanity continued to expand. New colonies were established, this time with council approval and cooperation. Human ships flew alongside vessels from every species. Trade flourished. Culture was exchanged. The wounds of war slowly healed. But no one forgot what had happened. The memorials stood on every world, the names carved in stone. The reminder that freedom was not given but earned, that peace was not weakness but strength, that humanity's rage when it exploded had been powerful enough to shake the galaxy to its foundation, but more importantly, that humanity's mercy had been strong enough to rebuild what that rage had broken. High above Earth, the USS Indomitable sat in permanent orbit, converted into a museum. Visitors from across the galaxy came to walk its halls, to see the ship that had led humanity's fleet to victory, to understand the species that had refused to be caged. And in the captain's ready room, preserved exactly as Admiral Thorne had left it, hung a simple plaque with 3 words. We were free. That was humanity's legacy. Not the rage, not the war, not the victory, but the freedom that made all of it meaningful. The council had overstepped, believing they could contain humanity. They had learned the hard way that some species cannot be caged, but more importantly, they learned that some species, given the choice between revenge and reconciliation, would choose to build rather than destroy. Humanity's rage had exploded across the stars, but when the fires died down, what remained was not ash and ruin, but the foundation for something better. That was the true reckoning. Not the fury of war, but the wisdom of peace. Not the strength to fight, but the courage to forgive. Not the power to destroy, but the will to create. And the galaxy would never forget it.